saying it could be a coincidence if it's one, but if it's two guys
right
back to back, I'm like, this may be more than a coincidence then.
If you were a lawyer and you were gathering that type of evidence, right?
Yeah.
Showing them working, doing those things in the backyard. If you were a lawyer, you'd say, well, the evidence shows that both of them guys were engaged in that kick. So breaking it down like that, shouldn't we look into this a little bit more carefully and a little bit deeper than just dismissing it? You know, like Boss Rutan did and all them others.
And there's not one video out there that's advocating for him and saying like, hey man, he might have really taught those guys. There's not one, I guarantee you. I'd be shocked. I'll put it that way. But this is going to be the one. And I think you plead a good case. I'm on board. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense to me.
I think you may have something here.
Hey guys, got a really cool video for you today. What if Steven Seagal really did teach Anderson Silva and Lyota Machida that front kick? So keep an open mind with this because there's actually a good probability. My guest on today's episode is George S. Pogacich, and if you've seen my martial arts wizard video, which I'll post in the link below, this is when I first heard about him and first found out about him. Here's a little excerpt from that.
And if, you know, 3 Chinese guys up in the mountains at 90-year-old have it, and we should have had it, and maybe like 2 Sistema people have had it.
He is the one.
You know, I'm not saying everybody has it, but I don't know what George is. George is like an alien.
So George is a really fascinating guy. We talked for hours. It went by like minutes, and I'm going to post future videos with him. But if you want to find out more about him, follow him on Facebook, George S. Pogacich. Also his YouTube channel. I'll link it in the description below. He also has a course on how to be the hardest puncher in the room, which I'll link in the description below. And some of these concepts he talks about, we talk about in this video as well. But in this video, let's talk about that Steven Seagal front kick. If you like this kind of content, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification so you know whenever I put out new content, and let's get to this discussion. Let's talk about Steven Seagal's front kick that he apparently taught Anderson Silva and Lyota Machida, who both landed it in fights soon after. Now, a lot of people said Steven Seagal's full of crap. He can't even do front kicks himself, which he has a karate background. He actually got a 7th degree Dan in Kyokushin, I believe. It might have been ceremonial, but either way, he's got a karate background. He could obviously front kicks. Michael Jai White said he was trying to teach him to do a front kick on the movie On Deadly Ground.
I remember being on set and on Deadly Ground trying to get Steven Seagal to throw a front kick.
And said he couldn't do it. He did a pretty decent one in the movie, in my opinion. So we know Steven Seagal could do front kicks. A lot of people gave Seagal crap. A lot of people don't believe this.
I have to ask you, after the Anderson Silva kick against Vitor Belfort, you talked to us and you explained there were some people in the MMA community who said they weren't buying what you were selling. I don't know if you saw Boss Rutan. A lot of people were saying that you were taking credit for a kick that has been done many, many years ago.
I thought this was like a skit, like a Saturday Night Live thing. They were messing with the people, and I'm looking at my wife, and suddenly I go, holy, and she says, what? I say, it's real. He really believes this bullshit himself. This is unbelievable.
We had a conversation. You actually think there's a probability that Seagal did actually teach Lyota Machida and Anderson Silva this front kick, or at least variation of it. Like, why do you believe that?
Well, I think, you know, well, all these people are laughing because it's like, come on, everybody knows a front kick. And if that's what he taught them, how to throw a front kick, and they want a match with a front kick, then he's just trying to hook up, you know, link himself up and everyone thinks that he has this agenda getting popular through the UFC. And that's what he's trying to do. And he's not legitimate. And he's not aiming to be legitimate. He's just a con artist. And so they want to believe that for some reason too, you know. But
Steven Seagal, a lot of people want to believe a lot of things about him.
They want to believe a lot of things about him, and they just don't like the guy, and they want to hate on him.
I mean, it's really about attitude and friendship. You know, I'm not doing any of this for money or fame or anything. You know, I haven't. This is the first interview. I wouldn't even be doing this interview if George didn't tell me not to do it for him. But I'm just doing it out of love for the guys, you know, and trying to help them perfect themselves.
But he did say something about, in an interview, that the kind of kick, the way he does it is different. That's what he said.
The kick that I learned in Japan probably over 40 years ago that I've changed and modified and worked on for the last 35 years or so.
It wasn't that so much that he taught somebody how to do a front kick. It's the way he taught them how to do a front kick. And so every word makes a difference.
Yeah, it's
You know?
true.
I didn't invent anything. I modified them in such a way that I think I can make my students and myself in a real fight land them and hurt people.
And people are thinking that it's like you have to examine what he said, his words there, that the way he did it. So if he's able to, like when somebody executes a front kick, internally, if they have a lot of hitches, load-up points, you know, in their kick where they stop and start because they want to make it hit hard. Because every time you try to make something happen, you have to gather it and stop it. So it's going 3 feet, and then you stop it because you try to make it hard somewhere along the way. Now, if he told them, if he got rid of those notches and told them to practice very slow and be really aware and remove all these like little load-up points and notches, then now what you have then is like a spear being thrown at you instead of a front kick, really smooth. And your opponent doesn't see it because there's nothing startling about it. And now if that's what if he's doing something like that, and I don't know that he's doing something like that. I mean, it could be all a fluke, right? Could it be a fluke? Could it be just coincidence?
It's a good coincidence with both of them, though. I could see one, but they both landed and knocked their dudes out, their opponents.
Right, they never did that before, right?
Not like that, I don't think. But it was perfect. Like you mentioned, very precise.
And they were both training, right? Under Seagal at the time?
Yeah, they were.
So when he hit Randy Couture, they were influenced by Seagal. Right.
Which Seagal takes credit for, and then everybody like Boss Root and all those guys gave Seagal, oh, he's full of crap, etc.
Right. Yeah. So there could be something like that they're overlooking. So when they criticize Seagal, maybe they're not even thinking that he did anything. He could have done something like that to make that kick so much better. When he says, not the way he does it, he does it a special way or trains it a special way. Maybe that's what he was referring to.
So do you think Seagal, like, I mean, with his training and stuff, and he's so good in his movement, do you think he's implemented, maybe even unknowingly, or maybe knowingly, because he does train and spend a lot of time in Russia where Systema originated from? Do you think and again, it's not necessarily a system, it's more concepts in a way. Do you think he just developed these somehow?
Yeah, most likely. You know, there's not a whole lot of things that work, you know, where there's, you know, when you get real deep into style, you know, the principles and all that, it becomes, well, they know it too, or when you train 40 years or 50 years, you know, in the keto or something like that, or whatever it is, you know, you're probably using the same principle. I mean, I wouldn't say Systema has totally unique principles that there's no overlap anywhere. I wouldn't say that. It's all based on science. It's scientific. It's physics. You know, so because it's physics, because it's all science, it's because how we work, how our brains work, and how our bodies work. Then of course, you know, Seagal could, or other styles, or other people could do something. They could even do it unconsciously. You know, like we were discussing, that it could be just your way of doing something that happens to be right. You know, it'll take a scientist to break it down to figure out what you are doing naturally. Let's break it down, explain it scientifically. You know,
I mean, it's very interesting to think about it.
How much credit goes out to Steven Seagal for that?
You always reinforce that to me, that, you know, try that kick will land, and when it lands, it'll work. I definitely give credit for him to helping me perfect that kick.
And maybe this could open up minds, you know, because I think, again, Steven Seagal is just somebody a lot of people just like to bandwagon on and, you know, talk negatively on. But it is interesting, though, because I was always like, Lyota, Machida, and Anderson Silva never said no, never wanted to take any credit away from Seagal, you know, and then Joe Rogan would say, oh, well, you know, Anderson Silva's just having fun and going along with it.
Anderson Silva is very playful, and he thought it would be hilarious if people believed that he was learning all of his martial arts from Steven Seagal.
So Anderson Silva landed that front kick on Vitor Belfort on February 5th, 2011. 2 years later in 2013, he did slightly backpedal. He said, Steven Seagal is a good man. No coach, no train me, is a good man, is a good person. That's it. But he also said, I trained the front kick for a long time. I started to train mixed martial arts a long time ago. Seagal showed me the movement, the little movement, but I working hard for this kick my whole life. So that kind of still leaves the door open that Seagal added a little improvement, a little modification to that kick. Now, coincidentally, and shortly after that statement Anderson Silva made, he fought his rematch against Chris Weidman, and that was when that freak accident occurred where Anderson Silva basically snapped his calf bone in half. Overall, that's probably just a coincidence that it happened. Or could it be eerie karma that he tried to take away some of Seagal's influence on his front kick and then that happened to him? I don't think Lyota Machida ever made any comments, but the fact that they didn't always, at least for me, kind of left the door open. Like, maybe he did obviously not show him how to train a front kick. A lot of people know how to do front kicks. They were doing front kicks well before Seagal. But doing it in a different way, and it wasn't until I had the conversation with you about the Sistema and the different anchor points and load-up points, and it's like maybe he did kind of filter out some of those, little moves in the kick that weren't necessary, and just that little change, could be the difference of landing it. I'm sure you guys all heard that Bruce Lee quote, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own. Well, you got to think about it like this. That's more of thinking like on a macro level, and it makes a lot of sense. Like, I've took various martial arts. I'll use some stuff. I'll keep some stuff. Other stuff I think is useless, at least for me, so I won't even train it. But what Sistema does, it's looking at that more on a micro level where, and George Pogacich talks about this, it's really filtering down a move like a single punch or a single kick where there's like energy wasted in part of the move that is unnecessary, and there's a way to filter it down to make it more efficient, less telegraphic, more effective in general. So you guys got to think on like a higher level when it comes to Sistema, as long as you have an open mind anyway. And I really think that's a point that just flies over people's heads, like Boss Rutan, for example, talking about, you do a front kick on your third or fourth kata.
I mean, in your third or your fourth kata, there is a front kick to the face.
It's not about your basic front kick. Like, you could teach anybody how to do a front kick in one day. They're going to be better at it if they keep doing it a month. They're going to be better at it if they keep doing it a year. In 5 years, it's going to be way better than it was in a year. So it's a constant tweaking. So, and I think that concept just flies over people's heads. Like, a punch is not a punch. A kick is not a kick. And Steven Seagal even said it himself.
It's not exactly karate. It's just something that I created that's a little bit different.
Kind of reminds me of things I've been practicing. Like, I will do a hybrid thrust front kick. Like, it's not really a front kick and it's not really a thrust kick, and it kind of does hit like a spear, kind of like what George Pogacich said earlier. So I've implemented that into my training without even realizing what I'm necessarily doing, but I'm just trying to make this kick more effective, and like Bruce Lee says, I'm trying to make it uniquely my own.
Well, I think there's a video that showed that they spent time training that kick, even before the fight. I think he was coaching them and they were training kicking.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yes. Don't push. Chick.
I know he actually did techniques with Daniel Cormier too, because he wanted him to beat John Jones. Right. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but
he showed me some holes that were pretty effective. I can honestly say I've used them.
When was it? And you've used them in fights?
I've used them on my friends. Sometimes we play video games. Okay. I use them. I'll break out a move, but I mean, it works. It really could work.
This should leave the door open and maybe even change minds, or at least open the possibility that maybe we should give Seagal credit for those kicks in that minor change or changes that he made. Like, I don't think we can just discount him. I think we got to like leave the possibility, like, there may be something here.
Well, like I said, when people don't want to believe something, or when they don't like you, they're going to come up with all these reasons to support that.
That's true.
I mean, listen, Vito Belfort also said that it was just a lucky kick. Everybody has their opinion. Some people have sour grapes, some people have jealousy.
So what's interesting is that years later, Lyota Machida landed this front kick on Vito Belfort too, so I don't know about them being lucky unless he just has really bad luck against this kick.
And unfortunately, they're going to spread that all over, and then everybody sort of believes it. But and you're not objective at all. We lose all objectivity to what the truth is. So those are the problems. I think, when people do that, it's a shame that they do that. But you also have to look at, the facts. Steven Seagal has been doing martial arts a long time. Even Rickson Gracie says a lot of really good things in one interview about him.
Yeah, no, that was pleasant to hear.
I mean, based on his training, based on his understanding, he has a deep understanding of the concepts. And his philosophy is also based on proving realities, He believes in technique, he believes in the concepts within martial arts, like Bruce Lee.
People want to forget that area. They invested so much that they don't like Seagal, and that Seagal is full of it, that they want to forget even that Rickson Gracie video. That's the video that they want to forget.
You know what that reminds me of? So basically, it reminds me of museums. Like museums have like a drawer or a file cabinet that they put artifacts in that don't make sense to what we're led to believe of what happened 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever, however long ago. Like there's certain things that just don't fit the narrative of what we've been led to believe. And so like in the Steven Seagal Museum, of hatred that people have, there's this file cabinet that you got to throw that Rickson Gracie video in, and then maybe this video, and just kind of close that. Well, let's ignore this stuff,
Yeah. Anything that's coming out that, it doesn't fit the narrative.
Yeah.
Because they're out there to hate on them. So that's what they're going to do. And it's the same thing what they do with Systema.
That's true.
Because anything that's Seagal-like doesn't work, or anything that's Aikido or anything, that's similar doesn't work. But you really have to think about it. All these people that are saying what the Russians have doesn't work, they think the Russians are wimpy.
I mean, the Russians are anything but wimpy.
I must break you.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to spend any time like doing something that is ineffective, in my opinion.
My husband and I thank you for coming to our training quarter today. As you can see, it is highly advanced.
And they seem like, very serious and tough in general. So that's how I see them.
Right. And so suddenly, though, the narrative is it's all BS, it's all bullshito, and they call it all these names. And these are the Russians we're talking about.
Yeah.
They take their military really serious.
Big time. All right, that's going to do it for this video, guys. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not yet subscribed, because we're going to have more with George S. Pogacich talking about Systema and a whole lot more.